What the fuck are you talking about? You're mad that they have Insta cameras and Insta ticketing options. Okay, you're telling the wrong lesson. Because if you were an American boomer and you didn't have these racialized hangups because they're doing it Chinese style and therefore scary, you would look at this and go, wait, what the fuck are you talking about? Hasan at Donald Trump's visit to China. I have video proof of me watching the flag raising ceremony. Don't say I'm not Chinese anymore. Hasan's level is still a bit lacking. 1-1 weapons, who cares? Don't buy the best if bought first. How much tangible benefit has been given after so many years? Second, the more 1-1 bleeds for the U.S., the worse the living standards and the faster the reunification will come. The darkness before dawn is something we have to endure. As for the Iran Strait, whether it reconciles or not, reconciliation can boost the economy, but without reconciliation, it's just the same. Currently, first, we aren't restricting oil purchases. And second, if global oil prices rise, at worst, we all face inflation together. I guess it's more desperate. He's got such a narrow view. China doesn't care what Donald Trump did before, but what he's going to do now. Between nations, only interests and well-being matter. He fails to grasp a fundamental issue, whether King Novidal's tenure is more beneficial or detrimental to drawbacks. Yeah, the reason why we're in disagreement, which is a unique moment, because Chinese netizens usually love my takes, is because I'm not looking at it just as like what's beneficial for China in the interim. I'm not Chinese. I mean, I love saying I'm, Chinese or white Chinese. I think China has done tremendously well in the last couple of decades, especially. I love Chinese development. I want to implement a bunch of the policies in China. And I think this is a very Chinese attitude to have, which I think a lot of Chinese netizens will agree with me on this, is that to each their own, You can have socialism with Chinese characteristics. You can have socialism with American characteristics. Some of the stuff that work in China might not work in the United States of America and vice versa, right? And China understands that better than anybody else. However, my analysis on, what decisions Xi Jinping is making, which once again, I always will add, is just my own personal analysis. The fuck do I know? I mean, obviously he has many considerations here. He is responsible for the well-being of 1.4 billion Chinese people, right? First and foremost, as opposed to my assessment, which is a more internationalist framework that I'm operating off of, is that there are going to be, my assessment comes from an internationalist framework. Xi Jinping's assessment and the Chinese netizens' assessment here is most likely coming from a, pro-China perspective. They're Chinese. He fails to grasp a fundamental issue. As for other negotiable issues, let's leave them to King Know-It-All. At least we must secure the midterm elections of founding. Otherwise, how are we supposed to engage in political battles with the Democratic Party for the remaining 2+ years? What do you think? This round is just a safe face for Donald Trump, but there's probably little consensus in actual deals. Donald Trump's credibility can't be redeemed with a shared bike. HasanAbi's superficial understanding of China is still better than most Americans' perception of China, which shows how deeply the average American public misunderstands China. Because Donald Trump is someone who, if you give him an inch, he thinks he could take a mile. So you need to strike a balance where you don't give him too much leeway, yet he can't find fault with you. Make them feel valued, but don't demean yourself. There's like one of these. I feel like the Chinese negotiation techniques are pretty similar to the Chinese Empire's negotiation techniques in some respects. One of the things is if your enemy is weak, then flatter him. If your enemy is strong, then diminish him. Okay? If you have a strong foreign adversary that you are meeting, you try to embarrass them to the best of your ability by doing certain things so that they feel unwanted and no longer can negotiate from a stronger position. If your enemy is, or if your adversary is a weakened adversary to begin with, you holy Orientalism, dude. This is the one area where I feel like it's not Orientalism. I would go so far as to say Confucianism as a principle has remained calcified in many aspects of Chinese governance and Chinese culture, and it's been thousands of years at this point. Is not Orientalism. It's just an accurate assessment as a white guy from afar. Okay, this is the one area where it's not Orientalism. Like they do really ride for this shit, and they have seen some of the benefits of this as well. I hate all the Western news article says she's court the dragon. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm not doing that stuff at all. But to varying degrees, like Confucianism's cultural relevance and significance has remained, right? But so I think that's the goal here. The flattery for Trump on the one hand, like the direct flattery for Trump, has worked. It has worked because they know exactly how to play him like a fiddle. Okay, they know China more than anybody else. Obviously, values diplomacy quite a bit, values stability quite a bit, and they know exactly how to flatter Donald Trump, and it worked. I don't even think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I want to chart a different path forward with China, one that is collaborative in nature, one that is not creating unnecessary tension, unnecessary friction, one that revolves around cooperation, mutual respect for one another, understanding one another's goals and ambitions. Whereas the American perspective for the longest time has been single-minded, singularly focused on waging war with China. Well, now China is so strong that even many American analysts are starting to recognize that we might have to bite off a lot more than we can chew. Okay? That's the reason why you're hearing from so many different American analysts and people that have worked in the CIA, people that are former generals, that this is an unbelievable mistake. You're putting good money after bad if you think that you can actually catch up to China with all the defense bloat that we have. I think that Chinese development might yield a more peaceful path, a more peaceful future by force. But when I say by force, I don't even mean by like direct military intervention or like going to war with China directly. I mean by force as in like creating enough leverage and enough deterrence with your vast forces and with your productive capabilities that you cause the United States of America to second guess, and you cause the United States of America to make more restrained choices in its military adventurism all around the world, and certainly against China. This is a good thing, not a bad thing. So on that note, let's get into all of the coverage from my favorite subject, obviously. Trump meets Xi Jinping in high-stakes Beijing summit. So I have a very different approach, I think, than many Democrats do, certainly on this issue. I think this is good. I think this summit so far has been very good. It's been good for a couple different reasons. One, a lot of Fox News people finally went to China and got to experience like regular, everyday Chinese experiences. And showing that to boomers is probably really good because boomers think China is a peasant country. Okay? Obviously, every single person in my community has a very different attitude because I literally went to China. I talk about China quite a bit. I talk about Chinese development quite a bit. So you've actually seen it. Okay? You've actually seen it personally when you watched me do live streams in China, right? In Beijing, in Shanghai, in Chongqing, in Chengdu, and also in Hong Kong. But most Americans think China is run by an agrarian peasant society that is still working at the rice paddy. It is backwards. That's like not dissimilar to the DPRK, and our understanding of DPRK is probably also different than what the DPRK looks like as well. Obviously, I'm not, saying it's fantastic, but like Americans are very sheltered when it comes to the way that they learn about our foreign adversaries. So when you have Brett Baer on Fox News in prime time going up to like Chinese stores and being like, look at this is a robot serving me a sausage, a lot of boomers are going to be like, oh my God, they are so goddamn advanced.
Inside. This is the first of its kind for this kind of interaction. If you want to order something, hello, can I get a sausage, please?
Okay, 8.8 yuan.
This is inside.
Oh, baby. Yeah, also, there's a really funny, there's a very funny clip of Brett Baer has been the hero of this trip, okay? It's been very funny watching him go through the motions of like everyday Chinese existence. It's really funny. While Fox is complaining they got a ticket for illegal parking, this is what his team is doing. Beijing residents spotted this and uploaded to Douyin. Fox News Brett Baer filming in the middle of busy traffic. By the way, that is insanely dangerous, okay? Even walking on regular sidewalks without paying attention to scooters whizzing by is dangerous. And this is on the bike lane. I don't even know. This is probably one of the most dangerous things Brett Baer has done in his career. And I'm telling you, as someone who is there, even walking on the sidewalks without paying attention to the electric scooters that are unbelievably silent, whizzing past you at like 30 miles an hour, the fact that he's walking in the middle of the goddamn bike lane is insane to me. Okay, those mopeds, they're gonna take him out. An 85-year-old Chinese auntie is going to kill Brett Baer. People complained about getting a ticket. They complained about flock cameras. Well, the Chinese version of flock cameras. That's also very funny. A couple things that I obviously also experienced was like that there is definitely a lot of surveillance that's in your face in Beijing, especially. Definitely in a lot of major Chinese cities as well, but certainly in Beijing, there's an environment of tension. Beijing is a very, I would say, uptight city in comparison to many of the other Chinese cities that I experienced. Shanghai is very Western facing. If you're really into like a Western cosmopolitan, there's something for everybody in China because it's so vast, it's so large, and there are so many significant cultural differences from city to city. If you like Western style cities, you will love Shanghai. That was, Austin's favorite. Or Hong Kong as well, if you like, Hong Kong cinema, for example. I liked Chongqing and Chengdu the most. Probably Chengdu was my favorite because there are very different, like very distinct cultural attitudes in these different cities. And I think Chongqing and Chengdu were, like real Chinese cities as opposed to like Beijing is basically like Washington, D.C. in many respects. It's very uptight. It's very serious. And there is definitely an environment of tension where you're like, I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to do something wrong here. And I didn't feel that way in Chongqing or Chengdu at all. Nah, Beijing is a really real city. No, it is a really real city, but it's also, it's the heart, right? Perhaps I didn't get a good shake of Beijing as well because it was the first city that we were in. Maybe we were tense for that reason, but that was my experience with Beijing. It's just very, very uptight, very corporate, or very, not even corporate necessarily, but just like very party centric, if that makes sense. Now, there's a distinction here, okay? American surveillance is covert. Chinese surveillance, on the other hand, is overt. Chinese surveillance is in your face. American surveillance is not so much in your face, with the exception of flock cameras and things like that, right? And I find that very interesting, okay? Obviously, Brett Baer is, America literally does this already law. You can get a ticket in a mall in multiple cities due to automated cameras. Yeah.
In fact,
Fox News crew in Beijing got ticketed by CCP surveillance cameras after illegally parking for just 2 minutes. I have a lot of opinions on this. Okay.
In fact,
because on the one hand, the overt surveillance that's like constantly in your face in Beijing, especially, is an interesting culture shock for many Americans. And yet the things that they're complaining about here are things that Fox News would absolutely want. Like Fox News viewers would actually want here American style. And in some respects, it already exists in the United States of America. You think the Fox News boomers don't want a permanent surveillance state to ensure that every single criminal is instantly booked and ticketed and actually go to prison? What are you talking about? What the are you talking about? You're mad that they have Insta cameras and Insta ticketing options. Okay, you're telling the boomers the wrong lesson. Because if you were an American boomer and you didn't have these racialized hangups because they're doing it Chinese style and therefore scary, you would look at this and go, wait, what the fuck are you talking about? The cities are clean. There's no homelessness. There's no visible crime at all. Great. That's what I want. That's utopian. From the perspective of the white suburban boomers, right? They literally want that. So it's really funny when these guys look at what China is doing, when it's like, these are things that I'm critical of China, where I think it's like a little bit too strict. The the social engineering that takes place in China is far too strict for my taste. I'm a social libertarian in many respects as a Westerner, right? This is the culture that I grew up in. This is the opinions that I have. But those boomers, they're Treatlerites in every respect. They would love this shit. They would love the constant presence of surveillance and what that does to crime rates in America, right? The difference, of course, is we have constant surveillance. We have constant surveillance, and yet it is not overt, but covert. We have flock cameras. We have probably a similar level of CCTV density in major cities in the United States of America. We certainly do in places like London, for example, to like the per capita CCTV density is probably fairly high in the United States of America as well. I don't know the exact numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, though, and especially with the new invention of flock cameras and Pegasus Palantir software and AI surveillance. We are doing Chinese-style surveillance. We're doing Chinese-style surveillance here in the United States of America already.
Our driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US because they saw it on the camera. Now, there are real questions what the CCP's goal is about citizen tracking and social scoring. They say it's to make everybody...
Dog, you're there. Stop with the social scoring. You know it doesn't exist, man. Jesus Christ, go talk to any Chinese person, please. Chinese people make jokes about social credit on Chinese social media to make jokes about how stupid Americans are, by the way. They'll literally post that one wall of shame that they have where people crosswalk or people jaywalk on a crosswalk, and it just like poop immediately takes a photo of you and puts it on the wall of shame. They literally post that on Douyin and shit to be like, see, this is the social credit wall that Americans think is, social credit. Also, we unironically do have social credit. They don't. We do. That's what's so funny about it. We're like, oh, imagine having social credits as a system. Imagine having a social credit system. How dystopian. Bitch, we have it. They don't even have it. Every time there's like a regional pilot program that takes 0.4 billion people, okay? And then the federal government's like, we don't like this, nix this program. That's literally what happened with the social credit system. It was for businesses in a certain area. It was a social credit system for specifically businesses in one fucking region. It never got implemented at the federal level, and Americans still talk about it endlessly. If you want actually a federal system that is restrictive and Americans would probably look at as dystopian, look at the hukou system. Okay? That's one area that needs reform, in my opinion. It was perhaps very restrictive at the time, but maybe even beneficial for development. I don't know. And the current system, the current hukou system is just more so about like region locking you for social benefits that you get. Okay. I mean, you just said there was a ton of surveillance. Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying it made me uncomfortable, but boomers would probably love that shit. And boomers probably don't even recognize we have that shit. It makes me uncomfortable in America too. Hukou system is being reformed. A lot of Western leftists don't understand the changes that have been made to it in the past decade. No, I know.
You feel safe. These cameras are watching every minute. They're everywhere. And while they're watching us here in China, we hope you continue to watch. Special report from Beijing.
I say it's so cool we have flock cameras and no high-speed rail or interest in developing our infrastructure. We also literally do have this exact same system. Like I said, we have the flock cameras. We have mass surveillance, like always on, constant mass surveillance and AI tracking on top of that in the United States of America. Anyway, doesn't right-wing Cope hate you? I don't think he hates me as much anymore. I think a lot of people have, a lot of former liberals, like former Destiny acolytes, have over time reformed on their undying hatred for me. And I think part of that is because they realized that like maybe Destiny wasn't the best person and was kind of lying to all of them about a bunch of other shit and just was an overall bad person. So that cleared up some of the negative framing that they had experienced, some of the negative framing that they had seen over and over again about someone like myself. That's what it feels like to me. I think most people are too used to their perceived freedom. In most European countries, the criminal code is super bloated with piracy. even getting you prison time. They don't realize how often they break the law because there isn't strict enforcement usually. Yeah, there's a lot more leniency in many respects in the Western world as well. Yes. I think a lot of it is they were genuine in wanting fighters, and the same shift in the base happened with them. There just lives. Wait, yeah. Oh, yeah, that too. One of the main stalkers you had that worked with him turned on him and doesn't hate you, really? Yeah, I know. I think that they just have been burned so much. Because Sex Pestini's community is tiny for the most part, but he has a lot of like loyal orbiters that they self-described orbiters that have like they're micro influencers. Some of them actually have like fairly prominent platforms as well. And over the years, he's like fucked them over so viciously and sometimes even like in criminal manner, basically doxing them, humiliating them, bullying them, that many of them realize like, oh, this is like genuinely a fucking bad person. And it caused them to second guess their previous opinions about even someone like myself, because like so much of his community is born around like this built resentment around who I am and what I represent in American politics being like cancerous from their perspective. And he'll go to all lengths to basically disparage and lie about his opposition. And once those guys basically found themselves in a similar predicament where they were also his opposition, they were like, oh, wait, he just fucking lies about everything. He's lying about me this way, so he might have been lying about Hasan as well. And I think that's what caused a lot of people to change their perspective. So Brett Baer had that take as well on the flock shit. But let's take a look at this.
But first, Big Brother is watching. There are literally cameras everywhere in Beijing. We are outside the Haidian station, and I can count at least 20 on this corner. In fact, in Beijing, they've added 1,500 cameras just this year alone. They see everything. There's nobody jaywalking here because they could get a ticket right away. In fact, our driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US.
Anyway, so yeah, you parked illegally, bitch. Eat that fucking ticket. This was an incredible moment for me, by the way. Stephen Chung, my favorite Trump loyalist. My favorite character from the Trump regime is Stephen Chung. He is so perfectly shaped. I can't even say he's rotund because he's more so angular, if that makes sense. And I love him. I love him so much. And I think you guys know this. I've talked about it quite a bit. This is Trump's media guy, obviously. He's the White House comms director. And I think he is an incredible person. Okay? He is so perfect. He is the most perfectly shaped guy of all time. Yes, he is Flats the Flounder. He is so Flats the Flounder shaped. And I love that. I personally love that. And I'm not alone in that love. Look at Xi Jinping's face. He's like admiring Stephen Chung's size. He's admiring the fact that Stephen Chung is a human being. This was a job before the White House. Yeah. He is admiring him. Like, look, he's like, how can a human being shape himself like this? I personally think if I had power, if I had any power, I would probably hire Yakuza bosses like this. Okay? I would probably find myself hiring people that just look so comical. You know, like henchmen coded for really weird positions too. In the same way that Donald Trump has. He says, what have they been feeding you, comrade? You got it, boss. Physiognomy. It's incredible. He is incredible. I'm not even joking about this. Like, I don't need to joke about this. I'm being so sincere. He is incredible. He is so perfect in every way. Okay. Maybe my worst take. I think this frustrates people when I say like how much I fucking love Stephen Chung, but he is the top chud because he's just so chud shaped as well. He is the peak hench build. Oh God, I wish I knew more people like that. I wish I had more people like that in my life. Okay. Yeah. You don't wake up looking like this. It's dedication. Like he is dedicated to the craft. So yeah, echoes of when Mao met Kissinger's tall wife. No, literally, that's what I was thinking too. Look, this is a very famous moment where Mao goes, "Oh my God, your wife is so fucking tall. Look at his face." Wait, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Watch this. He's like, what? And remember, Mao is fairly tall. He's like 6'1", fairly tall guy. And he is in awe. He's like, what the fuck? He goes, that's your wife? And Henry's like, yeah, that's my tall ass wife, man. That is literally what happened here. Okay. That is what happened here. It's the same shit. You laugh now, but he's going to make bank on Weight Watchers ad campaign in cyberpunk dystopian future. Stephen Chung, he will never lose the weight. Get the fuck out of here. How dare you say that? He will lose his perfect shape. I hope it never happens. Okay. I hope that never happens. That is a disaster of epic proportions. Anyway, Bolsonaro news. Production company of Bolsonaro movie left an unpaid coffee tab of $5K. Okay, dude. Come on. Come on. Lock in. All right. Yes. Bolsonaro's a crook. She's 6 feet. He's 5'11". Mao was 5'11". I thought Mao was like 6'1". He was a lot taller in the real life sculpture that I saw in the Chinese. What is it called? What was the museum that I went to? The wax museum. Oh, it's a joke. Oh, you're making the 6'5'11" joke. Okay. No, Mao isn't over 6. No, he is. Sorry, I got really autistic. If you test me on, cultural forces, historical figures from Chinese history, I will get really autistic for a second. All right, let's get back to this now.
High-stakes handshake between superpowers. Chinese President Xi welcoming President Trump back to China for the first time in nearly a decade, rolling out the red carpet. Chinese children there to greet Trump. After the pomp, Trump heaping praise on Xi.
You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true.
Sitting with their...
That was such an Austin moment. When I heard that, I couldn't believe it. I always say China is beautiful. A lot of people don't like it, but I say it anyway. I shouldn't say it, but it's true. I shouldn't say it, but it's true.
May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Delegations at an expansive negotiating table, Xi saying they should be partners, not adversaries, that their common interests outweigh their differences. But the pleasantries a stark contrast to the challenges facing this critical relationship. In their over 2-hour meeting, Xi delivering a stark warning to Trump about Taiwan, which Beijing claims is its own territory. According to China's state media, Xi telling Trump if the issue is handled poorly, the two countries will collide or even clash. Trump tight-lipped.
How were your talks, sir?
It's great.
Did you talk about Taiwan?
Dude, by the way, it has been an unbelievable pleasure seeing Trump forced into submission and seeing him act like a normal politician. Okay? You rarely ever get to see it. Even with Putin, you don't get to see him behave like a real politician. He's like a child. Okay? I mean, he's like a child all the time, but he's like a bad child that is actually forced to behave like a good child for once. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you have like some relatives who are very spoiled or something. You know what I mean? And they in an unexpected moment, because they want to have ice cream or like a toy, they're told you have to behave for the duration of this event. And then they just sit quietly, very stiff, more stiff than they've ever been. Okay. And they wait like an obedient puppy for the treat. Right. And that's what's going on here with Donald Trump. It's been a fucking phenomenal thing to observe from afar. He was so good. You know how people say, oh, Trump became presidential in this moment or that moment when he bombed Afghanistan, he became presidential, whatever. This was one of the few instances where he was forced to behave like a fucking president. I've never seen anything like it. With Ukraine, he certainly isn't presidential. With Vladimir Putin, he is not presidential. He reduces himself with Vladimir Putin to a certain degree where it's like humiliating. This is perfect. Okay? It was the perfect amount. I could not fucking believe it. I've never seen Trump like this before. I was looking back in his 2017 visit to see if there was like similarities, but he was a lot different back then overall. This is the only time where I've seen him not fuck up. Okay. It's genuinely shocking after 10 years of Trump madness to watch him sit and stand next to a global force where he has to straight up act right.
Great place. Incredible. China's beautiful.
Trump hoped to use their sit-down to seal deals on trade and technology, bringing along with him over a dozen American business leaders, including Elon Musk and Apple's Tim Cook. But those ambitions overshadowed by the ongoing war with Iran. China is one of Iran's closest allies, buying more Iranian oil than any other country. And while Trump has said he...
By the way, they know how to fucking gas him, okay? The song YMCA will be played at the State Banquet for the Trump visit. They know how to gas him so good. The children, the little kids that were waving the American flags and the Chinese flags. First of all, this is a very like Eastern thing, like an Eastern country thing. For those of you who don't know, look, I grew up in Turkey, and you know, children are the future is like a very important part of the whole ordeal, where we have like an International Children's Day. You know what I mean? So in America, there's like a very weird, gross association with like involving children in politics in this way. I didn't grow up in that environment, in that culture at all. So like it might come across as weird for a lot of Americans when they see like little kids waving flags. But like, so the attitude in many parts of the world, not in the West for the most part, but in many parts of the world, is this idea that like children are the future, okay? And that children don't have the same violent worldview, the worldview born out of conflict. So like the idea is that the next generation, our children, are going to merge the world. That they all their perspective is an internationalist one automatically. Okay, children are stupid. You mean? Of course, the cynical 96 would say the children are stupid. Perhaps the better way to look at it is that children haven't been destroyed by capitalist indoctrination and a theory of conflict, even offensive realism, that we've learned to implement and develop and believe. Okay? But yeah, Trump loved this shit. Okay? They're waving the American flag and the Chinese flag, and they're doing it in unison. They're organized. Look at him. He fucking loves it. He loves it. Which, by the way, for the record, not only is there's two different Chinese cultural forces at play here. One, children of the future. They have hope for a better tomorrow. This is not just a Chinese attitude either. I've definitely grown up in this environment in Turkey as well. But the other one is mutual prosperity. The concept of like mutual understanding and you know, wanting to create an environment of peace, charting a more peaceful path forward through diplomacy. This is not just a Chinese attitude, but it's certainly one that is like you know, very important in China as well. America used to do this as well to a certain degree with other countries. That's why we have like sister cities, right? We have sister cities and like mutual you know, like an environment of mutual understanding and trying to develop like some kind of cultural cross promotion and collaboration. So that's what this is, right? And the Chinese certainly want that, right? This is like a thing that I definitely saw in China personally. It's something that many other countries have always done. I do think that the world has in the accelerated neoliberal unipolar American hegemony, the world has grown dark, I would say. Like this was definitely a thing even in the Cold War, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and post 90s, in the aftermath of the Cold War. I think this attitude started shifting, where we lost sight of an internationalist framework, where in many respects, everything was global, but also there was a much more pessimistic attitude about a much more cynical attitude about mutual understanding and trying to chart a path forward. The Chinese never gave up on that. Okay, so this is like a old world mentality, but in some respects, this was the fundamental principle of the West as well. This was like Western liberalism, was all about even if they didn't fully subscribe to it, or even if they were insincere in their advancement of this kind of idea, this notion is literally what the Western world was developed around, right? And it worked. And it worked. Okay, this was unbelievably successful. It was so successful, this as well, was so successful, Trump brought it up in the first meeting that they had, where he was like, the kids, they were so wonderful. Obviously, we're all making jokes, because, he's an Epstein affiliate. But it did actually work in buttering Trump up, right? And he said he had a bunch of different moments in the Beijing summit so far that were very interesting. I will get to them, talking about, Chinese food, for example. There's like funny moments as well. But here's some of the other top line moments.
Doesn't need President Xi's help to end the war. His own Secretary of State saying it topped the agenda. Trump pressing China to urge Iran back to the table and to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
We hope to convince them to play a more active role in getting Iran to walk away from what they're doing now and trying to do now in the Persian Gulf.
This morning, the White House saying the two sides agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open to support the free flow of energy. Iran's chokehold on the strait now strangling the global economy.
Another recognition of weakness from the American side is going to your number one foreign adversary and basically begging them to help you untangle a quagmire that you found yourself in because Israel pushed you into bombing Iran. There's no way to look at this as anything but an unambiguous humiliation, an unambiguous defeat. America is being humiliated by a middle power, a regional power. Iran is winning. Iran has won. It's now up to us to recognize that fact and move differently.
Sending gas prices soaring back home and inflation spiking. Americans' budgets stretching thinner and thinner. In Los Angeles Wednesday, more than 2,000 families lining up at a food distribution center before supplies ran out.
It's really bad. That's why we're here. Prices are going sky high. Everything's really pricey, even the gas and everything. So it makes it a little bit hard.
And the two leaders wrapping up their first day with a lavish state banquet here, toasting to their
dude, who's got the bread lines now? The American, if you were to tell me when I was growing up that there was going to be a moment where the leader of the United States of America would be going to a communist country run by the Communist Party to beg them for help, financial aid, financial assistance in geopolitical incidents that they've caused, and there were food banks or bread lines taking shape in the United States of America, as the communist country they were going to had a much more positive trajectory. Most people would laugh at you for that. They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? The fuck? What do you mean? Bread lines in America as opposed to the communist country? What are you, crazy? Brother, is it a communist or state capitalist? It is run by a communist party, okay? It is a country, a transitional socialist state. They have tremendous controls over flows of capital, where capital does not dominate the country dominates capital. That's a major distinction, okay? In any case, let's continue.
Special relationship, and President Trump returning the favor, just inviting President Xi to visit the White House at the end of September. Now, tomorrow will include another round of meetings, but it remains to be seen if they're making any real progress on the thorny issue.
Lenin is turning in his grave? What do you mean? Lenin himself was more cognizant of the reality of state monopoly in a transitional period. What are you talking about?
issues, including trade and, of course, the war in Iran. Michael.
Yeah, we know if they do, you'll bring it to us, Mary. Thank you so much.
We're expecting to see the two leaders face to face in this hour, perhaps hear a little bit from them later in the hour. But tell us about what has happened thus far since you've been on the ground.
Well, so far, all we've seen is this very brief vision of President Trump getting off the plane. There was some pomp and circumstance. It was a red carpet, exactly what you would imagine President Trump would want arriving in China. He was greeted by the vice president of China, which shows how important this trip is, as well as a delegation on the ground. There were students with flags, with the Chinese and American flag. And then this is the first time we're going to see the two leaders together. And this is the first time they're going to see each other face to face. And this is really where you're going to see that big celebration, and one that President Trump remembers fondly. This is something that we saw back in 2017, a difference, of course, being that Melania Trump was by his side. But he's going to get out of the car and walk face to face with President Xi. They're going to go down this red carpet. And of course, you can see there the American flags flying.
We're going to listen in right now as we see them on that red carpet, meeting face to face and shaking hands. Let's listen and watch.
It's so funny that she doesn't speak English, or at least they say he doesn't. I think he does. And obviously Trump doesn't speak Mandarin. So there's no, he definitely does. I mean, he fucking visited the Golden Gate Bridge when he was 32 and then visited Iowa when he was VP. I think when he was VP, right? Like, he's been to America. He's a lot more familiar with American culture, American works than Trump is with anything China related. But this is always the case. This is something that a lot of people do not understand in the United States of America. There's a reason why I, a Turkish American citizen who literally fucking grew up in Turkey for the first 18 years of my life, and until like next year when I turn 36, will have spent more of my life on Turkish soil than American soil, okay, have a profound grasp of American culture. Every other international citizen has to understand American culture because America has been the domineering force around the world. Maybe our children will probably look at Chinese culture in a similar way.
So, Kristen, as we're watching these images of President Trump walking down this rope line of what looks like Chinese dignitaries, one thing I am noticing, and I wonder if you have some insights into this, is that it does not appear to be any, maybe, or many Western press in close proximity to the president right now. Is that your understanding of what's happening in this moment?
There is a small presence that is in that Great Hall. The press pool that traveled with the White House was given an option, or at least some of us were given an option to go there. There are increased rules, obviously, in China when it comes to the press. And for a lot of us, it was not going to be possible for us to actually from that location in real time, which is why there aren't a lot of networks there. Remember, the U.S. press pool has been credentialed by the White House and by China, essentially told by the White House that these are the people traveling with the president. So you'll see some of them on the ground there. It is a handful of people, but it is a small footprint that we have here among Western journalists that are on the ground.
Look at that. Look at that fucking beauty. Just look at that beautiful man. I feel like he's something beyond man, right? Like, I don't want to even call him a man. Look at that beautiful specimen. Specimen is a better word for Stephen Chung. God damn, is he fucking pretty. Oh, what a beaut. I have so much love for people that just look like they're cartoons. Okay? He is cartoon shaped.
I will say, one of the interesting things I'm seeing here, too, is the body language between the two men. President Trump kind of grasping President Xi's hand when they were shaking hands, showing a lot of familiarity. I mean, President Trump is one who really kind of dotes on this relationship. He's often praising how close they are, how they get along, and you can see him really living that in real time with President Xi, kind of showing that closeness. And, he is not somebody who really shows a lot of affection, and he was sitting there patting his hand. So that was an interesting moment. You can see here now President Xi is shaking hands with.
Yes, I have the Xi Jinping mojito story. I know he loves Ernest Hemingway. Here, Here, Xi Jinping is more American than most Americans from a 2015 speech. The Chinese people have always held American entrepreneurship and creativity in high regards. In my younger years, I read the Federalist Papers and Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I was interested in the life story and thinking of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, and other American statesmen. By the way, this is very common amongst communist revolutionaries around the world. Ho Chi Minh is another great example of this as well. Ho Chi Minh was also an Ameribu. Just so you understand, a lot of people hold the American founders in great reverence. Obviously, there are plenty of criticisms for the founders. I myself also have a similar attitude on it, where I take the good, right? The good and the bad of the American Revolution. There are numerous schools of Marxist thought on the American Revolution. I know that's been a big point of contention on Twitter as of late because of what AOC said. But regardless, most socialist revolutionaries, communist leaders around the world hold the American Revolution and the American founders and the founding principles to high regard. In any case, he read the life story and thinking, was interested in the life story and thinking of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, and other American statesmen. I also read works of Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman, Mark Twain, and Jack London. I was most captivated by Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea and its descriptions of howling wind, driving rain, roaring waves, small boat, the old man, and sharks. So when I visited Cuba for the first time, I paid a special visit to the breakwater in Cojimar, where Hemingway wrote the book. And in my second visit to Cuba, I dropped by the bar Hemingway frequented and ordered a mojito, his favorite rum with mint leaves and ice. I just wanted to feel for myself what was on his mind and what the place was like as he wrote those stories. I believe that it is always important to make an effort to get a deep understanding of the cultures and civilizations that are different from our own. This is something that I try to urge others to do as well in the United States of America. This is one of the things that I try to get you guys to do all the time, to deepen your understanding of other cultures, to recognize them as human beings with different goals and different opinions, or similar goals in many respects as well. Okay? I believe it was Castro or Che Guevara who said a revolutionary must learn, a revolutionary first and foremost must educate himself. This is profoundly important. Okay? It's one of the worst aspects of American culture, how sheltered we are. And I think it's, in many respects, the deep-seated white supremacist notion that is fundamental to the development of Western civilization that has caused a lot of Americans to refuse to understand others. Because why do you need to learn about it? You don't need to learn about it at all. You just need to dominate. As a matter of fact, when you do learn about other cultures, it makes it harder to dominate them. It makes it harder for you to recognize them as something less than human, right? This is Western supremacy. It's white supremacy in general. This is a real problem. And it's been fine for the longest time for many Americans to not know or not care about other cultures beyond our very own. As a matter of fact, many Americans, I would say, don't even want to learn about their own culture. However, nowadays, the world is changing. There are other powers around the globe that are competitive with the United States of America, or even with the limited tools that they have, the limited economies that they have, with the limited productive forces that they have. They are capable of fighting back against the American empire. So now you definitely have to learn. If you want to be ahead of everybody else, this is something that you should remind yourself. Some of the biases that you have as an American citizen, the understanding that the rest of the world is somehow lesser than us, because look at all the bounties of Western empire for a century and beyond, versus look at our foreign adversaries all around the world living in squalor, this notion that they haven't been able to develop. This is a backwards way of thinking, okay? This has been my secret weapon. And this is a secret weapon that I was, fortunately born into, right? I have a profound understanding of American culture. I see myself as an American, and yet I grew up in Turkey. I'm a dual citizen. And therefore, growing up in Turkey, with a deep understanding of American culture has given me an internationalist perspective. And this has been unbelievably beneficial in my commentary, in my analysis. Because when I look at a country like Iran, I don't just automatically assume that they're backwards and they're animalistic and they're primal and they just hate the Jews or hate America for no reason. I develop a deeper understanding of where that enmity comes from. And the same goes for China. Okay? This is very important. A lot of analysts, they read about China endlessly. They learn about China, but they never choose to understand China from a Chinese perspective. And that is the reason why they always have horse blinders. They think, oh, China's just building these cities. They're ghost cities. That's what they used to say in the 2010s. They're building these ghost cities to create economic activity or to flex on us, to show us that they have some sort of productive output here. Well, that's very stupid. If you actually just, dug in and listened to what they were saying at the time, it was very clear what they were doing, right? Even in some of the better read people in American society, some of these analysts that write for Foreign Policy magazine and the like, some of the analysts that are, that work in these think tanks, they have this horse blinder on where because of that, no matter how well read they are on China or Chinese history, Chinese military tactics, Chinese urban planning, they still cannot they still can't overcome the biases that they have about China, so they just don't trust it. They don't trust it. They don't believe what they read. And then they constantly find themselves confused. They constantly find themselves being wronged. Like they constantly find themselves on the receiving end. Or not on the receiving end. What is a better way to explain it? Americans consistently are wrong about China for this reason, no matter how well read they are. Okay? And it's not just China. It's the same with Iran. It's the same with Afghanistan. It's the same with Russia. It's the same with the USSR. Okay? Because biases can be very powerful. Okay? If you're unbelievably biased, if you have these major blind spots, if you're perpetually prejudiced, exactly, you can do the reading, but you'll always be caught blindsided by what your foreign adversaries are doing, what they're capable of accomplishing. This is a weakness. This is why I always say bigotry isn't just violent, dangerous, but it's also bad for the person holding the bigoted opinion. Okay? It's cope. It's stupidity. When you have these blind spots, you can be the most well-read person, but you still fail to grasp what's going on in front of you. So, this is more revealing as a statement of what education was like and might still be like for Chinese elites than what it says about Xi, aside from the personal touch about Hemingway. Jack London stands out, very highly regarded in communist world as an exemplar of naturalism and for his own socialism. In those terms, Hemingway was a continuation of London, while Thoreau, Whitman, Twain can be seen as forming a line of enlightened progressive democratic writers. Yeah. My greatest superpower in analysis is not dialectical materialism, okay? I know a lot of people think that that's the case, and that is a very important part of my analysis and the way I see the world, the way I see this global design. I think my greatest superpower is that it's dialectical materialism paired up with an internationalist framework, one that actually recognizes that even our adversaries, no matter how violent they might be presented as, still have a logical through line, right? Because you can be equipped with the skills of Marxian analysis, okay? But if you have these unbelievably powerful biases that you have, that you learned that you learned since birth, basically, like American exceptionalism. The idea, you're talking out of your ass, homie, no true Marxist-Leninist isn't internationalist. There are still plenty of Americans who consider themselves to be MLs who actually fail on this front. And the reason why is because biases and perception can cloud your judgment. That is the point I'm trying to make, okay? Jesus Christ. I know that dialectical materialism is itself an international framework ontologically. I know. But if you can't apply it to countries that you have seen as adversaries, both ideological adversaries and just like foreign adversaries that are constantly seeking out the death and destruction of America, okay, without recognizing that these countries just want survival, they want dignity, okay, then you're not fully reaching the comprehensive adoption of dialectical materialism. That's my point. Yes, sure, we can always posture as someone being a fake ML, fake Marxist-Leninist, someone not fully understanding the principled interpretive tools, the principled interpretive approach within dialectical materialism. But that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, because we're talking about fucking human beings, and human beings are imperfect, and human beings are always going to be susceptible to social conditioning. Human beings are irrational. My goal is to try to get you to overcome those irrational behaviors.
With the delegation that traveled with President Trump, including some of his top aides, his son, Eric Trump, Lara Trump, all of them waiting there to meet the Chinese president.
He can't afford to lose in Iran, but the level of escalation is going to have to be pretty significant, and it won't be bombing these missile sites. He's going to have to take aim at some of the oil and gas sites in Iran. But if he does that, that's going to cause a lot of retaliation and lead to higher inflation in the United States. So President Trump is boxed in a lot of ways. He's trying to find wiggle room. Maybe this visit can help that, but that's why the stakes are incredibly high. And as I said before, Americans, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we should all be rooting for President Trump. We want President Trump to succeed. We don't want him to give away the shop. We don't want him to make unnecessary compromises on Taiwan. It's great. We're going to get purchases of American soybeans and planes, but in exchange, we have to very aggressively support American interests.
The kids like what you were just saying.
Yeah, what happens when American interests shift? What then? Here's what it is, right? What happens when America or Americans realize that it's not in America's interest to consistently saber rattle against China? What then? Because I don't believe it is in America's interest to saber rattle against China, our foreign adversary that we are reliant on for virtually every aspect of American domestic production. 30% of all trade. It's ridiculous. It's a sham. It's a lie. Now, obviously, this also to a certain degree existed with the USSR as well, but never to this degree. International trade in the aftermath of the Cold War, under the period of global neoliberal control, has been very different. It's a complex web that is unbelievably fragile, and Iran has demonstrated its fragility. Everything falls apart if the system is not working as intended. America, which wrote the rules, America that was the architect of this global design, is now suffering from its over-reliance on China. So I say, lean into it. You designed it. China is now beating us at our own game that we designed. Time to chart a different path forward. It's that simple. And when I say stuff like this, people go, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh my God, you're fucking dirty commie. You love China. Why don't you go live in China? All this shit. But perhaps even Trump has a more realist perspective here about America's capabilities in a way that is genuinely shocking. But I guess not so shocking if you know how Donald Trump operates. Donald Trump respects power more than anything else. And from that framework, he is not ideological whatsoever. As Gabor Mate was correctly pointing to, Trump is not an ideologically committed fascist. I agree with that. His actions are fascist because he sees that that is the most successful way to secure power in the United States of America, leaning into unexamined racial wounds, for example. White supremacy has always been an unbelievable force of galvanizing the working class, the lumpen pros, the reactionaries alike. And he's done that. But he's not, in the same way that like Stephen Miller is, an ideologically committed fascist. Okay? He is a realist in certain instances. Perhaps that's the reason why he's been so vicious about Hamas, so vicious about the fate of Palestinians, where he just goes, it doesn't matter. You can bomb Lebanon if you want. It's clear that the Lebanese paramilitary group that also has its own, political party, Hezbollah, is incapable of dealing devastating blows directly to Israel. They can deal devastating blows to the Israeli occupation, but not necessarily Israel, the nation. Whereas Iran is in a different predicament. But Iran is still weaker than China, for example. And therefore, when it comes to China, Trump takes a very different tone than he does with the Palestinians or even Iran. With Iran, it's different than the Palestinians. Obviously, it's more conciliatory in comparison because he's forced to reckon with that. And he's going through the motions right now of that recognition. But when it comes to China, he doesn't want to even disrupt these forces at all. He tried with Liberation Day and the tariff stuff, right? He tried to wage tariffs war with China, and he ate a fucking sizable L there, right? He caused tremendous disruption around the globe in international trade. But he ultimately had to back away, as I told you he would. Okay, that's why we have the taco Trump method anyway, right? Notice how Trump treats Europe versus how he treats China. There is tremendous reverence with the way that he deals with China as opposed to the way he deals with Europe. There's even more reverence with the way he deals with Russia as opposed to Europe. Because on the one hand, he understands power and he respects power, but also on the other hand, he fucking hates people who cave and capitulate, especially from a weak position. That's why he has no respect for Europe, and that's why he has no respect for the Democratic Party in the United States of America. Okay? Two forces on this planet have been able to, well, let's say three. Okay? I'm going to give you one funny one and two serious ones. Three forces on this planet have made Trump second guess his approach. Okay? China has made him strike a very different tone. Iran has made him second guess America's capabilities. And Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani is obviously the funny one. But why does Trump respect Zoran Mamdani, but he doesn't respect the Democrats? People always fucking ask this question, right? They don't understand it. It's because Zoran Mamdani is coming at Trump from a position of power in an area that he cares about quite a bit. Okay, the respect and reverence that Zoran has from the elite class, the intellectuals, the cultural forces in this country that Trump has always wanted. Popularity, real popularity. That's why he likes Zoran and treats Zoran differently than he treats the rest of the liberal politicians. He expects liberal politicians to grovel in front of him. He knows that when liberal politicians grovel in front of him, they're not doing it from a place of having any sort of power and demanding something from Donald Trump. They're just groveling because they're worried about being stomped on. Okay? The same goes for European elites. He has tremendous disdain for European elites. He has tremendous disdain for the Liberal Democratic Party, the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, and he has tremendous disdain for the European elites because the expectation there is you have to grovel, you have to beg, and you'll be happy for the crumbs I throw your way. Very different attitude in China, don't you think? Perhaps there's a reason for it.
We're just going to listen in for just a second here. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary image of young children.
Yeah, I don't think it's sincere. I think these kids will put up to it.
Well, really? Something tells me that they were strongly encouraged.
I thought this was all just happened to be here at the same time.
We'll listen in for just a moment and watch this.
But the symbolism would suggest that they are eager to make some kind of deal. And as Jason mentioned, they're not in a great position either. I know they have vastly more oil reserves, but look, their net import of oil is down 20%. This is not an economy that is in a strong position. They've been facing a real estate crisis for 5 years. They need to export all of these goods. Domestically, demand is not what it was. And so as much as we want this war to end, look, 50% of their oil comes from the Middle East. So I think, frankly, in this moment, there might be more to be aligned on. Of course, the tech piece of this is huge. Trump brought a huge coalition.
What do you say to the Clinton news desperately begging for an Ellison takeover when they have one of the most consequential American foreign policy moves being made in broad daylight, and they choose to bring a fucking New York Post correspondent on to deliver like insightful analysis? The fuck does the New York Post know about China, man? I joke, but like I literally am a better fucking analyst on China and Chinese American relationships than fucking Lydia Moynihan of the New York Post. What are we doing? All you're doing is diluting your audience. Why? I genuinely don't understand why. Like, what purpose does this serve? I know that the goal here is obviously to maintain social conditioning, to maintain this approach that we have to fucking posture against China and you know, behave this way. But even Fox News is probably lapping CNN at this point because of partisan reasons. Okay, Fox News has to take a very different tone on China now because Trump is taking a different tone on China. So Fox News has to follow along. You can't. God, it's just open your fucking eyes, man. It's right in front of you. It's hitting you in the head. What are you doing? You know, I don't know why people would rather delude themselves into thinking that the world is very different than it actually is, just so you can feel comfortable about America's position on the globe, rather than try to develop a better understanding about where China is right now. This chatter says, don't talk about China like you know it. You know nothing of China. This bitch talking, bye America, you suck. Bro, you popped out of the ground like a daisy. Some of us have family who were commies. Don't talk about China like you know it. Bye. Lady who gets mad at me for saying, as a, you know, analyst in America, as a commentator in America, I'm not positive enough about China, I guess. Or maybe you were talking about the person.
Business and tech leaders, and China is desperately trying to get our AI chips. They need that capacity to continue to grow their own economy. We're in an AI race head to head with them, and they recognize they need NVIDIA, they need some of these microprocessors, and hopefully that's a huge point of leverage that Trump stands firm on, because there's been a ton of IP theft. We need to make sure that our companies...
Bro, it's 2026. It's 2026. Stop. Even the Republicans don't talk about IP theft anymore. What are you doing? Dude. This is so dumb. What the fuck are you talking about? IP theft in the big 226. What are we doing, bro? Like, IP theft right now unironically sounds like JD Vance coming out and being like, well, China is a nation of peasants. By the way, if you're wondering why JD Vance is not there, that could be an answer. When JD Vance said, why should we worry about China? They're a nation of peasants. Why would we worry about a backwater nation of peasants? Let me tell you, I was in China right after he said that. Okay? That was an incredibly fucked up thing to say about China. That was genuinely one of the worst things JD Vance could have said. I mean, they're willing to let Marco Rubio into the country by, you know, changing his name after the sanctions that they implemented, but they were not willing to let that one go. I'm willing to bet.
We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture.
That was the worst choice of words that this fucking moron could possibly sequence together. Okay? The absolute worst thing you could say. It's not only obviously untrue, okay, but it's also so fucking racist that every Chinese netizen that heard this statement lost their fucking mind. I mean, he said this in 2025, and this did insane numbers on like Douyin and Xiaohongshu and all the fucking Chinese websites. They were all dunking on him. They were making fun of him, being like, look at us, we're peasants. And then they would show their like AI tech and stuff like that. But it was very frustrating to hear. I don't pay attention to the news cycle for a bit, and the American century of humiliation and Chinese century of prosperity is in full swing. Yes, I'm willing to bet that played a role. That played a big role in why J.D. Vance is not in China today, in Beijing at the summit today, even though he has ambitions of higher office. If you're wondering why, despite his very clear ambition for higher office, he didn't go to one of the most consequential meetings in China, this is it.
That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
Explain to us how you get manufactured.
Anyway.
Are protected in that regard.
Anna, the Washington Post had a pretty big report today based on some intelligence sources that say that there's a U.S. analysis that details that China is exploiting the war in Iran to maximize its advantage over the United States across military, economic, diplomatic, and other fields. And that actually includes their efforts to kind of stretch their soft power, their hard.
It's a twofold disrespect too, using the term peasants in a disrespectful manner to say that they're backwater peasants. That's also historically fucked up too, you know? Because like the modern attitude, like, or at least like the communist attitude on this is that, yes, China is a nation of peasants that rose up against all odds and you know, and created a government that is run by said peasants, or at least cares about uplifting the material conditions of all Chinese citizens, including the peasants. Peasants played a very important role in the revolution.
Power and their soft power.
An enormous amount of leverage in here. One of the things that we're not talking about is the fact that President Trump needs a favor from President Xi. That favor is to reach out to Iran, this close ally, and essentially ask them or pressure them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
I think this stuff is good, though. This stuff is ultimately good because it will cause people to come to our side on this issue. Hopefully. Many people that have yelled at me for years and years because they just didn't know about what the modern Chinese existence looks like, how much China has developed, is now forced to reckon with that because the changes are even more apparent since 2017. Okay? That's it. So people will slowly but surely come to terms with the reality.
Peace deal. The big question now is, what does he want in exchange for that? What does he want in exchange for that when it comes to Taiwan? What does he want in exchange for that when it comes to business deals? That is a big ask. And what is he going to use, President Xi, as leverage to get what he needs out of this when President Trump comes to him?
应当做伙伴而不是对手，相互成就，共同繁荣，走出一条新时代。 大国正确相处之道。
I went from writing papers on the evils of Chinese surveillance to glazing Big Xi because of broadcasts like yours. Not anecdotal, but there's a shift, brother. I know, but broadcasts like mine are very limited in reach. And like anything that I've said that is remotely positive about China over the last decade or so was almost always met with tremendous enmity. Okay? By liberals, by, pro-NATO liberals, by American imperialist liberals. Because American imperialism and American exceptionalism is one of the hardest forms of propaganda to cut against. Okay? It's taken a decade or so to get here for even this community. This community would fucking shove words back down my goddamn throat. There are still so many fucking people in the edges of this community and outside of this community, far beyond this community, that will actively say, oh, Hasan's analysis on China is just glazing China. It's fucking bullshit. It's like, he's such a... Like, they have a very reactionary opinion on it. There are still articles being written today, purposely misunderstanding my criticisms of China as well, at times. Purposely misunderstanding my criticisms of China, and then acting as though my perspective, my positive opinion on China is... coming from a place of being a campist, where my analysis is not born out of what I'm seeing, right? With a recognition that the Chinese are a sovereign state, a sovereign nation, a sovereign people that have their own goals, their own ambitions. But instead, my analysis is America bad and that's it. China is cool, but you do dick ride it a little too much. Man, some dicks are worthy of being rode. What the fuck do you mean? I would be dick riding America into oblivion if we had a decent form of governance that could control the flows of capital, that could actually engage in even development, focus on fucking rebuilding Gary, Indiana, Buffalo, West Virginia in its entirety. So many forgotten places, okay? Imagine having robust high-speed rail across the entire country, the entire fucking continent. Are you kidding me? Imagine our foreign policy looking like the Chinese foreign policy, the Chinese approach, instead of constantly dominating and recreating like colonial vestiges in the way that we have all around the world. We actually focus on these countries. We focus on building a robust manufacturing base on U.S. soil. If we had done that for the past 100 years, I'd be riding America's dick super hard too. Yeah. I mean, this is it. Like, Americans will look you dead in the eye and tell you that the American system is superior to China's because we get to be represented by people like this instead of competent bureaucrats. Even when we recognize we're dysfunctional, we're still a temporarily embarrassed utopia that just needs people to vote hard enough the next time. The illusion of choice is all we need to feel superior to half the world despite falling behind on every observable metric. And I'm not even saying like the Chinese system is superior and we must use that system. We must become like a one-party state controlled by the Communist Party, which I'm not saying that. Okay? To each their own, right? To each their own. To each their own. To each their own. Maybe it works for China. Maybe it could work for us. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. All I'm simply stating is, let's move in that direction. People love saying China is capitalist, and that's why it's so prosperous now. Okay, let's do Chinese-style capitalism in America. How about that? Then they go, no, it's communist. You can't do that. And I've spent my whole fucking life having to deal with that. Okay? I say, okay, Norway has, tremendous nationalization. Norway has nationalized its entire extraction industry, right? From the forests down to the oil on the ground. Let's do that. If Norway is not socialist, let's do Norwegian-style socialism. They say no, then it's fucking communism. I say, look at China. Look at how well China has developed. Perhaps there's a lot of important lessons to learn from that. They say, oh, it's because of capitalism. I go, okay, let's do that kind of capitalism. They go, no, that's communism. The fuck are we doing? What the frick are we doing? Yeah, Musk's youngest son wears Chinese-style vest on the morning of May 14th. Musk, alongside Apple CEO Tim Cook, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, and more than a dozen other American business representatives. What caught people's attention was the 54-year-old Musk brought his 6-year-old youngest son on this trip, and photos show him wearing a top with Chinese elements. Yeah. And then he wrote in Chinese, my son is learning Mandarin. Dude, the super wealthy are showing you where the future is, by the way. Elon Musk is not alone on this. A lot of super wealthy people are teaching their children Mandarin. Do you want to know why they're doing that? Because they want to prop them up. They want to prop their next generation up to be equipped with the knowledge and the skills to live in the Chinese century of prosperity. It's that fucking simple. This is a Chinese diaspora account. I don't really give a shit whether it's a Chinese diaspora account or not. What I'm talking about is Elon Musk's response to the Chinese diaspora account, which is that he's teaching his son Chinese. I don't understand why some people think the children were forced to welcome Trump. Beijing's school newspapers have published many interviews with these students. These people all voluntarily sign up and only go after the competition. It's like giving a primary school kid the opportunity to leave school and meet both Xi Jinping and Trump at the same time. Who wouldn't want to go? It's racism. Americans don't understand it. They think, oh, these kids were forced at gunpoint. They have to. The American perspective is China does good thing, but at what cost? China does unique thing at what cost? China does the same thing that America does, but they do it Chinese style, so it's bad. I mean, we cover fucking Chinese museums as though they're doing propaganda, not realizing that that's what fucking museums do in America as well. And it's very annoying, but that's just how it is. That's why they do it. So anytime you read in the American newspaper anything that's going on in China, you have to remember that they are framing it in a very sinister way. You know? I mean, even I received some of this like similar this similar bias framework, right? Part of the reason is because of my ideological framework. But like, I'll go to Cuba and they'll be like, Hasan went to Cuba to throw food at poor people and make them dance, right? You go to Cuba to deliver humanitarian aid. They say, oh, he just went to Cuba to like, to use the Cubans as a puppet to do propaganda.
You know, why wouldn't I support that? So I'm proud to have that vote. And also something that the president said before he left for China. I mean, he said something that got clipped saying, I'm not thinking about American people financially. But what he really was saying, he did say is like, you know, I'm really thinking that we can't ever let Iran building a bomb. And I mean, that's the essence of what that is. And to hold that line, I mean, how could we just walk away?
Yeah, thank God for American democracy, where we got guys like this.
Wait, and not let that.
He talks like long Nick Shirley. Oh my God.
Happen. And now the whole world should join us, stand with us. China, you know, Europe, all these other countries should say we should demand Iran end their nuclear ambitions. And now we can all get back to building up all of our nation and parts of the world. So that's here. You know, why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Americans would look you dead in the eye and tell you the American system is superior to China's because we get to be represented by people like this instead of competent bureaucrats. Even when we recognize we're dysfunctional, we're still a temporarily embarrassed utopia that just needs people to vote hard enough next time. The illusion of choice is all we need to feel superior to half the world, despite falling behind on every observable metric. Every 2 or 4 years, I love getting to exert my will to decide which businessman's grandson will represent me. And they never end up representing me. They end up representing, obviously, corporate interests. There is that reality as well. Make no mistake, I think theoretical democracy is certainly a progressive historical force. Okay, was certainly a progressive historical force and still has the capacity to represent a progressive historical path forward. The problem is we don't really have a real democracy. We have a theoretical democracy, but we don't have a real democracy. Okay? And it's certainly not functional. So what the fuck do we do? Anyway, here is Trita Parsi. Just before Trump met with Xi, Iranian news services reported that Chinese ships had begun transiting the Strait of Hormuz under the Iranian mechanism. While Beijing rejects a toll, it has been open to paying an administrative fee for the environmental upkeep of the strait, which is just another way to frame the toll. This agreement neutralizes American pressure on China to side with the U.S. to open the strait, since the waterway is open to China. In fact, it reverses the pressure. It stops these ships from transiting as a part of the American blockade. Trump will be picking a losing fight to Xi while in Beijing. Instead of Trump pressuring China to help open the strait, China will pressure the U.S. to make sure the strait isn't blocked for Chinese ships. This is yet another way in which Trump's adoption of the FDD's proposal for a blockade of the blockade is backfiring on the U.S. The sooner Trump stops listening to FDD and its allies, the safer America will become. Yeah, this is a different understanding as well. China says no toll for traveling international waters, but this could be a way for China to say like, well, technically the Omani and the Iranian coastline is what actually covers the Strait of Hormuz, and therefore maybe it's not international waters. But I don't know. Well, only time will tell. Only time will show what the Chinese ambitions are here, and we'll probably find out fairly soon. We'll find out soon enough. Okay.
In the new era. Mr. President, I look forward to our discussions on major issues important to our two countries and the world, and working together with you to set the course for and steer the giant ship of China-U.S. relations so as to make 2026 a historic landmark year that opens up a new chapter in China-U.S. relations. I will pause here and hand over to you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before. And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful. The military is obvious. It couldn't be better, but those children were amazing, and they represent so much. And I know they represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president has had. And that's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked that out very quickly. We're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want to say on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have.
Yeah. When I love shit like this because this also kind of reminds me of like the Fox News Zoran approach. Fox News would be like, Zoran is an Islamist jihadist, and then Trump will stand right next to him and be like, I love this guy. And then Fox News has to be like, oh, okay, well, Trump loves Zoran, and that's a good thing for bipartisanship. Same with this. Now listen. Nobody rewards people for being right, but too early. Okay? Unfortunately, that's what being a leftist is all about. But you should not worry about you should not worry about where things stand, and you should just be excited at the prospect of attitude shifting. Okay? This is what we will probably hear from liberals in many respects. Like, this is what's going to happen over and over again, I think. And that's what I do worry about a little bit. Like, liberals are going to try to ramp up anti-China sentiment because, like, they negatively polarize against everything that Donald Trump does is bad. Even so, you have the right giving you props. Now Virillium mentioned you in a video and it wasn't shitting on you. I don't know what Virillium is. In a long enough timeline, that's a Nazi. Oh, ew, gross. Virillium? I don't know what the fuck that is. A Nazi YouTuber? Stop bringing up YouTubers. You're paying their bills. True. Bro, did you hear Bleem Blop is talking about you? I didn't. All right, let's get back to China.
We have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top 30 in the world. Every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I really look very much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever. They can never remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else. But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now a toast by President Xi.
Bro, Donald Trump's going to come back from China with one of these, okay? He's going to come back from China with one of these motherfuckers. One of these bad boys. Would you wear the Malfit if you were to meet President Xi? I would wear whatever the fuck he wants me to wear, okay? But yes. I'm so excited about the Zhongshan suits. I'm waiting because, like, I keep wearing the gray one and I've worn it so much. That, like, it's so iconic, but I've worn it so much I need different colors, so I'm excited. What is there, no translation? That's crazy.
The two peoples and to the health of President Trump and all the friends present.
So much word 4 times. Well, yeah, because it's like such a it's such a unique look in America that you wear it 4 times. People are like, oh, you're really, really wearing it all the fucking time. Well, it's all Beijing. Speak a little Chinese for him. All right, let's see what Trump had to say. Oh, after he speaks, there's an English translation.
Honorable President Donald J. Trump, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to host the state banquet in honor of President Trump during his state visit to China. On behalf of the Chinese government and people, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to President Trump and the U.S. delegation.
Okay, that's crazy that that's all he said.
Year develops the start of China's This is a historic visit. This year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan for economic and social development. The over 1.4 billion people of China, drawing on the rich heritage of our over 5,000-year civilization, are advancing Chinese modernization on all fronts through high-quality development. This year is also the 250th anniversary of American independence. The over 300 million American people are reinvigorating the spirit of patriotism, innovation, and enterprise, and ushering in a new journey for the development of the United States. The people of China and the United States are both great peoples. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can go hand in hand. We can help each other succeed and advance the well-being of the whole world.
This is a little bit of a flex, but he got it like that. They do be having it like that, if we're being real.
55年前，尼克松总统派基辛格教了国际和国际推动。
55 years ago, President Richard Nixon sent Dr. Henry Kissinger to visit China, and ping-pong diplomacy was carried out between our two countries. Through efforts of the two governments and peoples, the door that had remained frozen for over 20 years was opened, marking a milestone in contemporary international relations. From then on, China and the United States have written many chapters of friendship through mutual openness and cooperation. Under the new situation, President Trump and I, fully aware of the expectations of our two nations and the international community, have had multiple meetings and phone calls and kept China-US relations generally stable.
今天和我们两边两领关系繁荣。
In-depth exchanges. Today, President Trump and I had in-depth exchanges on China-US relations and the international and regional dynamics. We both believe that the China-US relationship is the most important bilateral relationship in the world. We must make it work and never mess it up. Both China and the United States stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. Our two countries should be partners rather than rivals. President Trump and I also agreed to build a constructive China-US relationship to promote the steady, sound, and sustainable development of China-US relations and bring more peace, prosperity, and progress to the world.
尊敬的特朗普总统先生、女士们、先生们、朋友们，纵观中美关系发展历程，能不能做到相互尊重、和平共处、合作共赢，是中美关系能否稳定发展的关键所在。当今世界变乱交织，中美关系承载着两国17亿多人民的福祉，关乎世界80多亿人民的利益。
Peace, China. Trump, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Looking back at the course of China-US, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Looking back at the course of China-US relations, whether or not we could have mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation is the key to...
Bro, this is, oh God. Okay, I don't even want to listen to this speech. It's literally the same. Okay, I have heard this speech 10 times at least, okay? It's literally the exact same speech, like down to the fucking words. And I don't know what I was like expecting. I don't know why I thought it would be any different, because obviously China's goals have not changed with their relationship with America. If anything, if the takeaway from this conversation is that America should be a little bit more cooperative with China, then the American dynamic will have changed dramatically. You just killed a motherfucker. Least you could do is speak some Chinese. Wait, what?
Whether the relationship can advance steadily. The world today is changing and turbulent. China-US relations concern the well-being of the over 1.7 billion people of both countries, and affect the interests of the over 8 billion people of the world. Both sides should rise up to this historic responsibility and steer the giant ship of China-US relations forward, steadily and in the right direction.
Oh, speak a little Chinese to him, Derek. That's what you were doing the Come Town bit. I didn't understand it first.
为中美两国发展繁荣和人民幸福，为中美关系的美好未来和为
Wait, generic ballot polling trend among independent voters by Signal. October 2022, Republicans 59, April 2026 amongst independents. Democrats get a D plus 23, Republicans at 25 points. A net 32-point swing towards Democrats. Oh my fucking God. 25 points? That is, dude, 25% is crazy. Oh God, abysmal. What is this for your Nate Blowen interview? It was a Dem State convention at 424. Blowen was the leading progressive, but has fallen out of favor with many on the left. Liban Mohammed won the RCV vote at the convention, 51-49 over McAdams, the establishment guy. Liban is endorsed by Ilhan Omar and has momentum. The primary is not RCV. Liban and Nate will split the vote, helping McAdams get the nomination. Yeah, I know.
以及在座的各位朋友的健康，干杯！
Now please join me in a toast to the development and prosperity of China and the United States and the well-being of our people, to the bright future of China-US relations and the friendship between the two peoples, and to the health of President Trump and all the friends present. Cheers.
干杯！
Cheers.
Right, too early? Yeah, this is, she literally said the exact same words, exactly. To China and US should be partners, not rivals, in 2024 to Blinken in the exact same place, the Great Hall of the People. Presenting as some sort of extraordinary concession that Trump would have extracted from China is hilarious, and the insane popularity of this post, a sad testament to how ignorant people are. 129,000 likes on this. I never in a million years would have thought she would say something like that. Lauren Chen, who is weirdly pro-China, unbelievably reactionary in every other fucking regard, also has been, also corrects the record, even though no one listens. This is very standard rhetoric from China towards America for anyone who pays attention. I'm struggling to recall China even mentioning America as an adversary or anything overtly hostile. Yeah. This is why I think we could unironically convert the hogs to be communist. I swear to God, I'm kind of joking. Okay? I swear to your haters trying to find a new way to tie you to Nick Fuentes. Nick Piker and Hasan Fuentes are both saying voting Democrats for the purpose of the midterms. I don't know what happened to this guy, man. I used to like this guy a lot. And then they just like lost their fucking mind. Like him and a bunch of other like hyper left ultras, like they went like legit insane, which is understandable to a certain degree because Israel can make you insane. Chorus? Nah, this guy's not Chorus. What are you, fucking crazy? No, this guy went in the opposite direction. Y'all are so stupid if you think it's Chorus. No, this dude straight up started saying some sus shit about, they started saying some very sus things about Jews in general. And after that, it's been very odd. Some people have their minds completely fucking bricked by the Israel conversation, where they look at the Israeli ambitions. They look at the Israeli ambitions of like tying Zionism to Judaism, and they lean into it because they just have an outsider's perspective, and they genuinely fucking lose their minds a little bit, where they think like, no, it is actually like all Jews are actually secretly Zionists. And then they just continue on this journey where they're like anti-Semitism is the highest form of anti-Zionism. And it's fucking annoying because then like all these like stupid ass lib accounts will literally point to these guys and be like, see, this is the true voice of the left. It's like, bitch, I'm right here. Okay. You can talk to me. You can try to understand where I'm coming from, but don't fucking tie me to a lot of people that well, right? It's very frustrating. I eat it from every angle, by the way. I eat it from the Nick Fuentes fans. I eat it from the ultras who say I'm not like sufficiently anti-Israel because I'm not anti-Semitic. I usually don't talk about people like this either. because I feel like it's unproductive and it just gives them clout for no reason. The people of Newark are pissed because you're anti-Newark bias. Oh, shit. This particular line of commentaries from XQC, he's been saying that you're wearing suits to copy Nick Fuentes. No fucking joke. So stupid. I know. Nick Fuentes invented wearing suits. Nick Fuentes invented being anti-Israel too, except for when he was literally 10 years old. I was an anti-Zionist. So, or like when he was 13. I've been an avowed anti-Zionist for the last decade plus. Nick Fuentes was literally 13 years old when I was talking about Israel. Okay? Tucker Carlson was unbelievably pro-Israel when I was an avowed anti-Zionist. However old Nick Fuentes is, so I don't know how old he is. I mean, I've been an anti-Zionist my whole life, but I'm just saying, like, I've been in my professional media career, anti-Zionist hipster. Oh, I'm not that at all. I just I get really fucking annoyed when people hold up these newcomers as though they're the strongest, as though they're the strongest voices in their criticisms against Israel. It's very, very fucking annoying. Yeah, let's continue. Let's see what Donald Trump had to say.
Very much. This is a great honor. It was a fantastic day. And in particular, I want to thank President Xi, my friend, for this magnificent welcome. And it really was a magnificent welcome like none other. And for so graciously hosting us on this very historic state visit. We had extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today with the Chinese delegation earlier. And this evening is another cherished opportunity to discuss among friends some of the things that we discussed today, all good for the United States and for China. And it was a great honor to be with you. Please.
感谢习近平主席。今天我们度过了非常美好的一天。首先要感谢习近平主席这一盛大的欢迎，那么也非常感谢在这一次历史性的国事访问当中非常慷慨。那么今天早些时候以及具有建设性的对话。那今天晚上将是我们另外的一次机会，能够共同再次讨论我们今天早些时候已经讨论到的一些问题，以及我们的共同利益，以及我们如何能够为全人类塑造更好、更安全的未来。
Oh God, I forgot that there's.
The relationship between the American and Chinese people goes all the way back to America's founding. The first American consul to China, Samuel Shaw, arrived on the first American trading ship to reach these shores in 1784. The Chinese merchants had a name for the Americans. They called their visions the New People. 2.5 centuries later, that first connection has grown into one of the most consequential relationships in world history.
美国人民和中国人民之间的友谊可以追溯到美国的第一任驻华大使塞缪尔·肖先生，在1784年乘坐第一艘美国的商船到达了中国的沿岸。当时中国的商人到来的美国访客，他们将当时到来的美国访客称民族。250年后的今天，这一个当初的友谊已经慢慢的。
From the beginning, our citizens have shared a deep sense of mutual respect. Founding Father Benjamin Franklin published the sayings of Confucius in his colonial newspaper. And today's sculpture, recognizing that ancient Chinese sage, is carved into the face of the United States Supreme Court very proudly.
从一开始，我们两国之间的人民就已经有深厚的相互的尊重。美国的国父本杰明·富兰克林曾经在他的殖民报纸建筑物的这一名古代的圣人进行致敬。
The appreciation ran in both directions. Chinese admirers of President George Washington gifted a stone tablet honoring his memory to adorn the Washington Monument. It bears the words of a Chinese official who called the great general and statesman a hero among men.
这一种欣赏是相互的。那么许多中国人非常崇敬乔治·华盛顿总统。那么这些人当时就向美国捐赠了一个石碑，就是为了纪念华盛顿总统。目前这个石碑已经镶嵌在华盛顿纪念碑里面，石碑上刻有当时的一名中国官员形容这一名伟大的将军。
And across the centuries, this mutual esteem grew into a relationship that reflected the tremendous talent and potential of our two people. Chinese workers helped lay the railroad tracks that connected our Atlantic coast to the Pacific. American travelers to China helped spread literacy and modern medicine. And at the request of China's ambassador, it was President Theodore Roosevelt who provided the funds to establish President Xi's alma mater, Tsinghua University.
在过去几百年了建设国成
In World War II,
母校清华大学。
As allies in World War II, President Franklin Roosevelt's mentions of the brave people of China, that's what they were, drew loud cheers in his speeches in the United States, and everybody loved what he had to say, just as many Chinese now love basketball and blue jeans, Chinese restaurants.
You're a pet abusing ped? Okay, Uncle Satan.
In America today outnumber the 5
I am a pedestrian. I am not a podiatrist.
largest fast food chains in the United States, all combined. That's a pretty big statement.
那么，作为二战期间的盟国，罗斯福总统在美国的多次演讲当中，中国人民，正如当前许多中国人非常喜欢篮球和穿蓝色的牛仔裤，在美国数量要比美国前5大快餐连锁店的总的店面还要多。
This bond of commerce and respect that stretches back 250 years is the foundation for a future that benefits both of our nations. The American and Chinese people share much in common. We value hard work, we value courage and achievement, we love our families, and we love our countries. Together we have the chance to draw on these values to create a future of greater prosperity, cooperation, and happiness, and peace for our children. We love our children, this region and the world. It's a special world with the two of us united and together.
那么，至于商业当中的纽带，以及我们的数到250年前，是我们将要构建的未来的基础。至于未来将会惠及我们两国的人民，美国人民和中国人民有我们都非基于我们共同和平的未来。
Thank you again, President Xi, for this beautiful welcome. And tonight it is my honor to extend an invitation to you and Madam Peng to visit us at the White House this September 24th. And we look forward to it. And I'd now like to raise a glass and propose a toast to the rich and enduring ties between the American.
Yeah, this was a funny line from this, but explaining Chinese entrepreneurship to Americans. There's more noodles than burgers. Why did this coward delete the post? You love our blue jeans and we love your noodles. They're so wet.
American and Chinese people. It's a very special relationship. And I want to thank you again. This has been an amazing period of time. Thank you, President Xi.
那么再一次感谢习主席，感谢这一美好的欢迎。那么今天晚上，我也想借此机会向您以及彭女士提出邀请，于9月24号邀请你们出访白宫。那我也希望，针对美国人民和中国人民之间深厚的以及持久的友谊，我提议我们进。感谢。
Remember, Donald Trump doesn't drink. He has a relationship with alcoholism because of his brother who died to alcoholism. His brother was an alcoholic. He does not drink. Now, I don't know what this is. It might be apple juice. It might simply be apple juice, but it is really funny to assume that this was alcoholic, where they just like forced his ass to drink a little bit of alcohol. Surely they as the host would know this. Yeah, I suspect it's probably not alcoholic. Anyway.
Rivals? What rivals? Donald Trump has long accused China's Xi Jinping of...
Let's see what Jesse Waters had to say about this, by the way. Oh, so far, I think we all realize what this meeting looks like, right? There is a unique level of reverence coming from Trump that you normally never see. And Trump is acting right. Normally, he's a baby. He is a man-child. And yet, here in China, he's looking awfully presidential. Okay? He's looking awfully presidential. How strange. So what will Fox News do? Because obviously for the longest time, China is our number one foreign adversary. Our number one foreign adversary. This is the country that we need to defeat. This is the country that, if left to their own devices, would destroy America, would enslave us, blah, 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 blah. Right? And yet, hogs have to flip on a dime whenever Donald Trump decides, certain things are good now. Let's see what Jesse Waters had to say.
I hear they're big fans over there. The Chinese have made major inroads into the American restaurant scene. But get this, there are over 20,000 McDonald's, Taco Bells, and KFCs in China. And they're growing every year by the thousands. And once the United States gets fed...
No, don't worry. We got burgers in China. They got noodles in America, but we got burgers in China.
Fast food into a country. That's it. Fried chicken, Big Macs, chalupas. They start listening to our music, watching our movies. They start marrying our women. I'm just kidding. We don't allow that. But that's basically now an American colony. We got them hooked, and it's pretty much over. The Chinese have a history of expanding and then collapsing, expanding and then collapsing. So Trump, the strategy is ride it out peacefully as they expand alongside them peacefully, and when they collapse.
I am reminded of Xi Jinping's opening words. China and America have a shared history. For China, it's 5,000 years of history. For America, it's 250. Okay? Just saying. Just 5,000 years of Chinese history versus the 250 of American history. You can delude yourself into thinking that China has a history of expansion and then collapse, expansion and then collapse, to make it seem like Chinese collapse is imminent. But it's the American president that is currently in Beijing, and it's the American president that is behaving in a way where, in a very rare showing of grace, reverence, behaving in a presidential manner. Very interesting.
Perhaps you feast on their carcass.
Okay. Whatever you say.
It's incredible. It's incredible seeing Donald Trump behave this way. I didn't even know it was in his capability.
Ripping America off. But this long handshake felt less trade war and more friendly tug of war. As Trump's approval rating soared, well, among these Chinese children at least. Trump's delegation was quite something. His cabinet flanked by the titans of US industry. Among them, bosses from Boeing, Citi, Apple, and the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Another frenemy back in the fold. Inside, the Chinese president embraced the warmer tone.
A stable China-U.S. relationship benefits the entire world. When we cooperate, both sides benefit. When we confront each other, both sides suffer. We should be partners rather than adversaries.
I really look very much forward to
And the US president gushed in response.
We've had a fantastic relationship.
China can't be 5,000 years old considering the Earth is only 2,000 years old. Checkmate, China, crisis king. Fuck, I didn't even think about it like that, bro. God damn, that's brilliant. Checkmate. What now, liberals? True, dude.
Relationship, we've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you and you would call me. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader.
Donald Trump said he had great respect for China. Really?
China.
This is a leader who has built his political brand on aggressively attacking China, accusing it, sometimes quite rudely, of stealing manufacturing jobs.
Because we can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing.
And yet, on this trip, Trump has brought along Apple CEO.
Bro, he's like the dog, the two dogs that bark at each other and then the gate opens and they stop barking. This is the difference between a keyboard warrior and a real one. Okay? He's barking hard. Fake demon. Fake demon, dude. Oh, China's raping our country. And then the moment that he's inside of the boundaries of China, the People's Republic, in Beijing, he's like, I love China, greatest nation on earth, love Xi Jinping, and he loves me. We kiss sometimes. I shouldn't say it, but it's true.
Tim Cook, whose products have long been manufactured overwhelmingly in China, with some diversification. But
this is exactly what it's like when my fucking haters, in the very unbelievably rare occasion, come up to me IRL, okay? Behind closed doors, they're like, oh, I got him. One of them came up to me at the fucking, at the Web Summit. He's like, I'm an Asmongold fan. I'm going to troll you in real life. And I was like, okay, do you want a photo? Like, yeah, yesterday. What's your beef with Shoe on it? I was like, I don't have any fucking, it's one-sided, you know? Sigma, a real Sigma and a beta. When a beta meets a real Sigma. As I've said over and over again, in the real world, where we can be in each other's physical spaces, the situation doesn't unfold in the way that you envisioned it, right? On the internet, you can be like, I have portrayed myself as cool, calm, and collected, and my interlocutor is angry, emotional, and therefore losing the argument. But in the fucking real world, it's very different. I noticed your 20-second mentions of some YouTubers turn into 1-hour videos responding to your crash outs. Yeah, that they always do that.
Yeah. Different accent in person. I'm like the biggest Hasan fan. I'm here to retweet you.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
You want to take a photo?
I'll take a photo.
Okay.
What's with the beef with Shoe on head?
I don't know. Is there a beef with Shoe on it?
Yeah.
I'm not very familiar with it.
Have a good one. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys. You have to run for a flight.
It just doesn't ever work that way. You know what I mean? It like you think you're gonna look smooth with it, right? Like you're gonna be. You have this idea in your head that like you're gonna look awesome. I'm here, but then you come across like you're a fucking internet troll. You know, I'm here to rage bait you.
Mainly to India. So the visit was heavily focused on trade, but also another T, Taiwan.
She's been posting about you and these losers make that your problem. Yeah, that's one of the funnier aspects of this kind of stuff is that this beef is almost always one-sided, and like. There will be like maybe a 20-second mention on my half where I'm like, dude, really? You're going to fucking bring up Shuan head? What a fucking ridiculous thing to do. We're doing political commentary here. Who gives a shit? And now that I've said that, she'll do like an hour-long video on it being like, he was so owned. He was so unbelievably owned. And then all of these people are like, yes, you're fucking destroying him, my queen. And it's so funny because it's like, okay, yeah, I've been thoroughly dismantled, my worldview destroyed. You've done it. It's such a funny, easy way to algo farm, and people still fall for it. Like, who's the one crashing out? The person who did a 20-second mention or the person who did an hour-long video off of that 20-second mention? This is a one-sided beef. Yeah, I'm crashing out right now. Hasan is crashing out right now. You reacting to this is enough for them to call it a crash out? I know. They have used and abused the term crash out. I literally thought she retired from the internet. Yeah, I have never really been like someone who's kept up with whatever her politics are. But even I fucking know, regardless of my knowledge of her politics, even I know she changes her attitude with whichever way the algorithm swings. Who's the one falling for it? They're living off of you. I mean, that's fine. They can take a crumb. If they can make $1,000 video, good on them. You know, what are you gonna do? We got bigger fish to fry, right? What's more annoying to me is the fact that there are people who are like actively bludgeoning themselves in the head with this kind of insanely stupid bottom of the barrel commentary and think that they're actually feeding their minds with new information, right? They're not. They are deluding themselves into a world that does not exist. But as long as they stay online, I guess it doesn't really matter, you know? Hold on, did you say $1,000? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they make $1,000 or not, but it's like primary to make 14 to 12-year-olds feel like they're political. I know, but they grow out of it. This entire community is comprised of people who have, at one point in time, watched. This entire community has a shit ton of people that at one point in time had similar attitudes. Obviously, for their generation, it was different. You know what I mean? But maybe you watched a Ben Shapiro video and you got sucked into the right-wing pipeline. Maybe you watched Joe Rogan and then went over to Steven Crowder or something. And then you grew up. The real world hit you in the face. And then maybe you were a little bit more intellectually curious and found yourselves more in a more mature mindset, looking for alternative explanations. So yeah, for a while, the only YouTube commentary was libertarian. Even if you were woke on social issues, they were all still libertarians. Yeah. YouTube commentary sphere has always been unbelievably slanted to the right. It's never really changed. I mean, that's why even Professor Zhang, who will say correct things at times about, like, you know, Iran and America, will still be like unwashed incel. Are fans allowed to start a grifter version of the HasanAbi industrial complex? No, do the opposite, dumbass. The opposite can also exist if we build it. It's actually beginning to form anyway. You don't have to lean into it if you don't want to, but I think the alternative is already being designed, simply due to how diluted or how diluted the fuck Hasan content has become, that people genuinely started making the anti-fuck Hasan content on their own. There's a lot of adults who may never grow up from that. Well, you can't win everybody. You can't win every single person. So work with whoever, you know, work with the people who you can save.
President Xi told Trump that the Taiwan question was the most important issue to the bilateral relationship between these superpowers, according to China's foreign ministry spokesperson, who warned the US to handle it with the utmost prudence.
If it is handled properly, the bilateral relationship will enjoy overall stability. Otherwise, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Chinese had raised Taiwan and the Americans had made clear that their long-held position, supporting the status quo, was unchanged. But that didn't spoil the mood. A buoyant mood that could have some drawbacks, according to Jonathan Zinn, who has served as director for China on the US's National Security Council.
I think the concern is that this meeting goes too well, that could actually be disadvantageous for the United States.
That Kilo guy who did the 4-hour video on your haters literally starts the video by saying he doesn't watch you or agree with everything you say and asks some criticism, so it clearly is happening naturally. Well, it also doesn't hurt that all of my haters are unbelievably stupid and overall very bad people. So that's probably part of the reason why, like, they're like, one of the biggest issues is